Cool.
Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am Hard to Gil. And before I introduce my guest, I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Pocket Jack Comics, who have books like Palace of the Golden Princess and White Lily. And you can find their books at pocketjackcomics.com and on Kickstarter. And I will just say this, that Palace of the Golden Princess is a beautifully illustrated book. And if you like D&D, and depending on what D&D you like, there is something for you in that book. I am not going to specify which D&D it is, or it could be both or neither. It's up to you to decide and explore. But anyway, having said that, I don't want to dive into it because that would ruin the surprise. Because I have with me comic creator JD Calderon. So welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. It's been a while. Life happens, you know.
Definitely. So how's everything going with you?
I'm alive. That's all that counts. Again, it's a challenging year. Let's just leave it at that. It has been a very intense year, but we're not here. We could talk about that probably somewhere in the middle of this interview, because I think that there's a lot to be said about that. But obviously, you got a lot going on, because you got Maggie's Grace right now, currently on Kickstarter. But before we get into that, I figured I would allow you to introduce who you are, because you've been doing this for 20 plus years in every facet of a little bit of American comics, actually a whole lot of American comics, a little Japanese comics in there too. But quick introduction, because some people might not know who you are.
All right. So I'm the writer and creator of the Oswald Chronicle, Tall Tales, Dreamweavers, Magi's Grace. I worked on something called Tenchi Muyo back in the day. That was in the 90s. Recently had a massive Kickstarter, raised over 100K. To reprint the issues that I wrote back in the 90s. So that was really cool. Also wrote some adult books in there. La Blue Girl, Demon Beast Invasion, also wrote Phantom Quest Corps, Ixer 3. I did a couple things.
Yeah. So obviously you've done a lot of stuff. Obviously reprinting, Tenchi Muyo is always a good one. I enjoy that. There's like 15 different seasons of that out there. I mean, I don't know which you worked on, but like, didn't they like stay in Japan? They go to space, they go to Mars, they come back to Japan. Like, it's been a hot minute since I've watched it. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, the one I worked on was based on Tenchi Universe. It was a 6-issue limited series I did for them. So, and it was for P Anime, so it was Pioneer Anime back in the day. I was working with the producer. Her name was Hiroi Tsukamoto.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't know who publishes it now. Is it like
probably Viz? I think Viz probably has like the manga from Japan.
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's Viz, or it's like Signature, or I forget the other one. But it's not important. It's not important. Because I do want to get into the Kickstarter that you got going on right now, because I think that's what is most relevant. And so obviously we kind of got, I don't know how we exactly describe, but it's monster hunters, two monster hunters kind of fighting vampires in New England. And that's the very tip of the iceberg.
Right.
So, but I figured I'd allow you to explain what it is, because it's on issue 3, and all hell's breaking loose in this issue.
Yeah. So basically, the concept was, or is, what happens when cryptids come across, supernatural creatures, right? And Magi and Grace, those are the two. Those are the two monster fighters. Magi's Grace, they are sent in to settle these disputes, and you have vampires, and they're invading Innsmouth, right? So if you know H.P. Lovecraft, Innsmouth is the town where all the fish people live, and the vampires are invading. And someone sent, and he's like, sent basically an SOS, more like a big check. And Magi, it was Grace actually. She's the one. She was like, "Look, let's go help these guys out." So basically, that's it. It's vampires versus fish people, and these two lunatics are running in there trying to help out.
So let's talk about this, because obviously, I mean, the way I read it and I view it is that you have a conflict and you send a mercenary in to help solve your conflict. and you're paying the mercenary, but then these two show up, and it's a little kind of crazy because there's hordes of vampires attacking, maybe other creatures that the vampires in association with are attacking, and then now you get this whole kind of crazy battle that's going on or about to erupt, as you know, somebody and a bunch of people are in over their heads. So like, because the first issue is kind of the honeymoon issue to some degree, the second issue starts setting it up, and now we're getting to the real conflict in issue 3, where the real enemy, and wouldn't say he's a final boss, but it's an ancient vampire. But it's a mid-level boss, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, he's and then we also, there's also something else that gets revealed in the issue is something with Magi, what he's able to do. Something he's able to do. And I don't want to reveal too much of it because it happens in the book, but you know, it'll be interesting to see.
So let's talk about this too, because this is interesting, at least I think, is usually in comics, you get a first issue to make an impression. And that's what your first issue is in any book. Your second issue, you got to maintain readers and potentially capture some new readers. And then by the third issue, you should have your core readership figured out. And then you have to keep them happy to some degree, I would presume. And you also have to now start giving people a story and giving them a reason to stay and giving them, you know, the meat versus the potatoes and the carrots, for lack of a better word. And so that's how I think, and from what I read on the Kickstarter, that's kind of where we're at, I feel, in this story, is that now we're giving the real conflict, the real consequences of the conflict, you know, maybe being a mercenary, and maybe, you know, these fish people aren't so good either, and these vampires aren't so good either, and now you have a problem.
It's one of those things where it's like you have Grace. Grace is she's a sorceress, and both of them, she works for an organization called the Brotherhood of the Chamber, right? And they kind of have a loose association with Magi, right? Magi is a mercenary, right? Former paramilitary, got out of the military, went to college. This is where he met Grace. He met his wife. He met his best friend who married Grace. And he just thinks that Grace married his best friend just to haunt him. You know, it's just like this chick. She just keeps haunting me. But he's worked with this other group, the Brotherhood of the Chamber, and basically the Brotherhood, they're in charge of controlling all of the mythical, magical stuff that happens in our reality. So they're always on the lookout for anything strange and weird, and they keep in association with him because Magi is very special, right? And Grace, she, like I said, she's a sorceress, and she's one of the few they have. They don't have a lot of them. And you know, so she keeps firm's tabs on him. And you know, she's his. You know, it's funny, when I wrote this story, one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to show a relationship between two adults. And I've worked, you know, 30, 40 years in the workforce. You know, we just talked about your job. I don't know if you've ever had this association. I've worked for a long time as a manager. And I've had a lot of different relationships with a lot of different people, right? And then I don't know if you've ever heard the term work wife, right? Or work husband.
I had a work husband. I did. And we would tell dad jokes every Monday to each other.
Right.
And we would leave together, and it's like we're a couple, but we're not gay at all.
No, exactly. It has nothing to do with has nothing to do romantically or you know, it's just two people who work with one another, right? But they'll fight and kill for one another. You know, that's what it is. You know, it says you're in those trenches together, you're fighting together, and that's what these two are. You understand? Like, she has a husband with a kid. She loves her husband. He has a wife. He has 3 kids with his wife. And his best friend is her husband. So it's not anything romantic between the two of them, but you know, they would fight and kill for one another because that's what they are, because they work with one another. And their wives, his wife and her husband, they don't know what they do. Like they're like, he's a plumber, right? and she's supposed to be like some high-powered like advertising agent or something, you know, and but they're out there.
Let's talk about this a little bit, because
Yeah.
this is where this gets really interesting, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of what's called a handler, right?
Right.
So, so,
Hmm.
so, so it seems like Grace is Magai's handler to some degree.
To some
And,
degree.
and obviously, Magai has these skills that
Mhm.
obviously makes Magai special to a position, not to
Mhm.
mention the military experience, not to mention the combat experience, not to mention some other things that, we're probably going to find out in this book,
Yeah.
and in the next one, and maybe even going down further. So you almost need a handler and authorizer to say you can now go and, for lack of a better word, you can go unleash massive amounts of firepower with no consequences.
Mhm.
I,
Right.
I'm just going to use that. It's a code. If you don't know what the code
Mhm.
means, that's fine.
Yeah.
You have authorization to basically KIA.
Yeah.
So I find this to be interesting because now, and they're in secret society to a degree too. So
Right.
it's so interesting, right? Because when you start actually analyzing this, you take away, I guess, the mystical, magical components of it, because you can
Mhm.
just, I don't want to say it's window dressing, but it's a skin, for lack of a better word,
Right.
on what's really going on. And
Mhm.
that's what I think is fascinating, right, about the book, is that because I can put this and I can go and make this like Kingsman style if I wanted to.
Right. Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it's funny is when I first imagined the story, I thought we've all seen Reacher, right? You know, I haven't read any of the books. I have to I have to read the books, but I've watched the TV show like everybody else, and that's what I imagine. I say, what if this dude was a monster hunter, right? With just that attitude, whereas it's like, I'm not gonna take shit from anyone, and I'm just gonna go out there and beat the hell out of whoever comes. He doesn't care who it is. He doesn't care if it's a werewolf. He doesn't care if it's a vampire. You know, most of us would be terrified confronting these things. He's like, nah, I'm gonna whip that ass.
So to go into this too, because Oswald and Tall Tales, in my opinion, are definitely more kid friendly.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't think this book is kid friendly at any.
No, no, no. It was never. Yeah.
So what is that like though? Because when you're writing a kid friendly book like
Mhm.
Oswald Chronicles or Tall Tales, all of a sudden, obviously, you're not going to show nudity. There's not going to be any implied nudity. There's not going to be any
Mhm.
blood, gore, guts, whatever you want to
No,
call it.
no foul language.
Yeah, I don't think. If Oswald says sugar puffs, and I mean actual sugar puffs, that's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Like, my point is that, like, what is that like for you as a writer? Because I think to a degree it could be. I don't know. You tell me, but the way I see it
Mhm.
is that when I'm interviewing an adult star, there's things
Right.
that I could say that I can't say if I'm interviewing a comic person. And
Okay.
it's quite
Fair.
relieving to be able to do both, because there's
Mhm.
different conversations that can be had,
Right.
not because I'm uncensored. I
Mhm.
drop F-bombs on my show all the time, but
Mhm.
I can't ask the same questions to a porn star that I can ask to you as a comic creator, just by
Right.
nature of your business. But it's
Mhm.
very therapeutic, I guess, is the word I'm
Right.
looking for. So I don't know how you feel about that as a writer, but I
Mhm.
would imagine it could be, unless I'm wrong. And if you think saying this isn't therapeutic, I'll shut the fuck up. I'll be happy.
No, no. Well, what it is, so writing Oswald for very long periods of time, right? There will come a period where I'll stop and I will write some of the most grimiest, you know, violent, very, very, just that type of work. It's just, I want to get into a little bit more of the muck because, Oswald, he is, he's kind of proper and whatever. And, he comports himself in a certain way, which is fine. Right. But that fits that. Right. And then Magi's Grace just in a different world. These are different people doing different things. And, that's just going to be what it is. And like I said, I've written adult stuff. I've written stuff that's like, pretty much graphic horror. right? So it's I did a book called Reaver back in the day, which was just that. And it's just once in a while you want to flex different muscles as a writer. So you're like, okay, let's do a little bit of this, let's do a little bit of that. And that's what this was. This was just a lot of fun. So
And then to go further into this, because issue 3, without ruining too much, there are consequences that happen in this book.
Yep.
And one of the things, and I don't know how you feel about this, but one of the reasons why I stopped reading, DC and Marvel is that every 20 issues, they just reset the universe, and you kill off Batman, he's back in 4 issues. Not that there's anything wrong with bringing back Batman after 4 issues. If it's a good story, there's a reason to do it. But after a while, like, there's no consequences for what somebody does. I feel this is why manga is killing it to some degree. There's consequences in manga, and there has to be consequences on what happens. I mean, I have an idea what happened at some point in this book and in this issue in particular, but that's something that I think is really interesting too, is that when there's real consequences that then shape things out, and like a character dies in the 3rd issue of your book, I think there's something to be said about that. I mean, so I don't know how you feel about it, but that's the thing why I feel, people don't like the big 2 or the big 3 or the big 5 now, because there's no consequences. And well, I hate to say it, but there's consequences for actions in life.
Of course. I mean, it's it's also the problem with when you're selling an IP, right? If the title of the book is Superman, he's going to make it out on some level, right? So how many consequences can there be? There's maybe for everybody else around him, but not for him, right? Same thing with Batman. Batman's always going to be there. Captain America, it's all the same. The only thing I have over all of them is that it's an independent book, and I can do what I want when I want. And if I want to make something really bad happen to the characters, I can make something really bad happen to the characters. Right? One of the interesting parts of the book, though, is that, like you mentioned, the Oswald Chronicles, right? It all happens in the same universe. So the Oswald Chronicles happens on the, or I should say Magi's Grace takes place in the same world as the Oswald Chronicles, as does Dreamweavers. Okay. And they never come in contact with Oswald. They don't even know who he is or what he is, right? But they know, they will sometimes mention things that have happened in an Oswald comic that reverberates through their world, right? So it's there was one thing that was mentioned about Baba Yaga. They don't know what happened to Baba Yaga. They know that she's no longer around. They know she's gone. They don't know what happened. And that's something that happens in an Oswald comic, right? So it's that sort of interplay that I have.
This is interesting, right? This is interesting because I like connected worlds, but I also don't like connected worlds. Connected worlds can be very complicated.
Oh yeah.
In which that, because you got to know how everything vibes out,
right?
So, it could be complicated, and also, it is. I like when people separate their books too, because sometimes it's a good idea to say, look, I'm just going to start creating a new world, because creating a new world versus placing something in a world could be a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But that again, I mean, I'm not a comic writer. I don't have a desire to write a comic for a lot of reasons. Mostly economics. I've done the math. It looks like hell. It looks like hell.
It's expensive.
It's brutal. I mean, I know the exact numbers of, you're publishing 6 issues. I know exactly how much money it costs over 30 years. How much money it will cost you. It's about $2.3 million, in case anybody didn't know that. It's brutal, right? Truth.
Just a little bit.
What are you saying?
I said just a little bit.
30. So, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. A comic will run you anywhere from what, $3,600 to $6,000, give or take, average.
Yeah, on average. Yeah, depending on how it's broken up. So, I mean, all right. So, figure. Listen, man. I mean, basically, an average comic book page is going to run you anywhere from $100 to about 150 to 250. It all depends on what you want to spend, right? But on average, for an indie creator, in color, about 100, I would say, to about $200 a page.
And we're just talking about production. We're not talking about printing. We're not talking about any
No,
of that.
that's just production. That's just production. So on, let's say, $200 a page, and then you have lettering, the writing. I mean, depending if you factor all those things in, you add another $100, $50, whatever. So if you're running a 24-page book, $4,800 plus a cover.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was calculating it because I was calculating it that 3 covers, 28 pages, color, lettering, all that stuff together, you're looking at $6,000, give or take, for roughly. And so that's what I was basing my math off of. We could throw logo costs in there. We could throw in other stuff that you need to do in there, trademark and copywriting, all that stuff, obviously at some point. But you only have to copyright something once, really, or trademark your character once. You don't have to keep trademarking it for every single issue. Yeah. So that's a different expenditure account, in my opinion. But the reason why I drop it the way I drop it is that I look at comparables, and so I don't want to do a comic because I don't want to spend $6,000 to produce something when I can take that $6,000, put into an S&P 500 fund, and then legitimately put another $6,000 in, and over the next 6 years, that's $3,600. Let it sit for 30 years, 2.3 million is what it comes out to ultimately when I'm 67, which is so yes. And I make the argument that is your comic going to outproduce what I'm doing, or is it that this is what you want to do as a hobby, or you just in the project, or if you don't do this, you're going to die, which I understand completely because I have hobbies that are expensive too. But that's where I go with this, is that's my whole viewpoint, is that I just can't do it. I can't justify spending that much money knowing what I give up. Unless I'm wrong about America, and then we're all fucked. So, we're hoping that I'm right, everybody. We hope that I'm right.
But so, I mean, fortunately enough, like I said, I have a day job. So that covers that other end, right? With the S&P and all that stuff. 401ks and all that jazz, and, IRAs. And then the comic stuff is just trying to get it to a point where it pays for itself, right? So once you got it to that point, which is for Oswald, it's probably about 90-95% there. So I'm still dropping a few $100, maybe a couple thousand every year into it. But it's almost where it needs to be at, where it's breaking even. Magi's Race is making a profit. Dreamweavers are making a profit. So,
So it's interesting, right? So let's talk about my eBay business. And this is where I think comics gets all messed up, is that when you first start a business, you got to pump and repump and reinvest into it and hopefully grow it, because very few businesses are profitable on day one. It's very hard to be a profitable business on day one. When I grew my eBay business from 1,000 to where it is right now, which is doing 34,000 this year in sales, it took me a while to reinvest that money over 10 years and expand rapidly. But obviously I have a 32% profit margin in my eBay business. So that's after I pay my eBay taxes, fees, shipping, and repurchase merchandise. I take money out of my business. Obviously, it's not necessarily a huge amount on 32,000, 34,000, but it's like a clean, 11K. It's not bad, right? No. And it's growing every year. So it's nice to the point where obviously it's a profitable business, but that's where I think things have to become interesting, right? Is that you have to figure out how to set up your comic business, because there's a lot of sides to it. And necessarily, because it's like a high growth tech stock is how I view Kickstarters on a business level. There is a point where you turn a profit in your high tech company, but it can take 4 issues. And you got to know what the hell you're doing. You got to know how to take on water, is my point. But it's something that I just can't wrap my head around it. And it's like I can't justify spending $36,000 to do 6 issues. I just can't do it. I mentally can't do it. And it's a deficit of me. And it's not because I don't have stories in my head. I do. I just can't be like, let me just sign the check, $36K. Here we go. Like I just can't. I just mentally can't do it. But then again, I could spend $36,000 on a baseball card. So I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. So. But I can touch the baseball card. But
you can touch the comics.
I feel it's too risky. That's the problem.
It's extremely risky. But here's the thing, though, is like, I've been writing since I was like 8 or 9 years old, maybe even earlier. But I've been writing comic scripts since I was like 10, maybe 11. So it's in my genetic makeup. I just like doing it. You know what I mean? So it's a very expensive hobby, and that's all that is. And I don't look at it as any different than that. If you were golfing, good set of clubs are going to run you $30,000-$40,000. To get into
$40,000 for a good set of clubs. What clubs are you buying? You meant a golf club. I'm sorry. I thought you meant the actual physical club. My bad.
No. I'm talking about golf clubs, man. I'm talking about a good set of golf clubs.
No. I gotta call you out. A good set of golf clubs will cost you about $4,000, not $40,000. Big difference.
$40,000, really? All right. Well, what would a good membership to a good golf club cost you?
It depends. So blue collar, where people drive Corvettes, probably like $18,000 a year. So joining a place like Fenway or Wingfoot, you're looking at $120,000 to $200,000.
Right. So all right. So even if it's just $18K plus another $4K for clubs, look at $22,000 a year, right? And then if you like to travel, it's just going to cost you even more because you're going to travel other places, right? Because you don't always want to play at the same place, right? It's not much different. If you're into boating and fishing, what's a boat going to cost you? A good one,
fishing,
a good size one.
Hey, fishing every year costs me like maybe $600-$700. It's not bad.
Well, no, but if you get, I don't know, 20-foot boat.
Yeah, I'm gonna go buy a boat. That's a great idea. Me driving a boat. That's a great idea. Like, really want people to die today? Like,
well, I mean, don't kill anybody, bro.
You'll be reading on the news. There was a high-speed chase in a lake, and you'll be like, I know whose boat that was.
Yeah, well, it might be Tom because he owns the lake, so But yeah, man. I mean, I look at it like this: it's like any expensive hobby. If you like to collect cars, same thing. I mean, the amount of money I spend on comics annually is crazy. I write it because it's an expense for my taxes, so I have to keep track of them and all that jazz. So it's like the amount of money I just spend on physical comic books.
My R&D in my tax is crazy. Right. Because for the podcast and as a card collector, my R&D is wild. And people are like, how do you have an R&D like that? And I'm like, well, it is. I need to have this expenditure, this expenditure, this expenditure. My PSA account is tax deductible for grading purposes. A bunch of stuff is, it's crazy. I have to buy cards that I have to give away for free as freebies in my order, because it's good for business, but that's tax deductible. I mean, it's crazy how you can structure taxes, because I'm one of those kids. I don't know if you do this, but every New Year's Day, I read the IRS code.
Well, no, I have an attorney. Well, I have a tax preparer. I'm an attorney. But no, I don't read it. The tax code is massive. Or do you just go through the addendums and just read the new tax codes?
I read the whole thing over the course of like 2 weeks. Like I mean, I'm not like reading it like word for word. I mean, I'm skimming parts of it, but I have a pretty good idea what's in the tax.
Yeah, because it's massive.
The reason why I do it is that I want to spot efficiencies and loopholes and benefits that I can take in my business. I mean, this is just 101 for me. This isn't like, I mean, I enjoy reading the tax code. I'm one of those kids, I'd be perfect. And in fact, I should be hired to disassemble the IRS, but not the point here. But I enjoy understanding it because it benefits my business. There's all these provisions that could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I bring them to my accountant. I'm like, can we use this one? Can we use this one? Can we do this? And I compare my tax statement to my accountant for a reason in a certain way. And I'm like, great, this is awesome. But like that, I find it fascinating, right? But again, I don't have expensive hobbies. But I get when something pays for itself too, because my card collecting pays for itself.
Right. Yeah, and that's what it is. You just have to get it to that point where it's paying for itself. You know, and then if you can also get it to a point where it's making a little money, that's not too bad either.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So yeah, so no, I find this fascinating, right? Because every time I have a conversation with most people about this, they hate having these conversations, and I love these conversations. I love talking business. I love talking shop. I love talking about how to become more efficient at business, right? I don't want to talk about people's personal profits in their business. I'm talking about what would I pull in on a percentage on average, but like I find it fascinating. And I find that I find it weird that nobody wants to talk about it and wants to talk shop about it. And they all get offended. They all get upset. And this is why I've actually stopped and very open about it, is that, you know, I was early on Netflix a while back when it was 177 that rose up to 1300. And I had people publicly and privately telling me I'm going to lose all my money on that stock. Turns out I had a very, very, very good run with it and still have a good run with it. So I stopped sharing things because what I find is that nobody actually wants to talk about this and wants to benefit. And I find that the community, and I don't know, I don't know if it's a comic thing. I don't know what it is, or it's the messenger and not the idea, but I find it fascinating, right? Because I'm a strong believer that people in comics can benefit from non-comic people who run businesses.
Sure. I mean, definitely. Because, I mean, most people get into comics for the passion, right? So I'm very fortunate. I got into the business because of my passion, right? But my father he had his own business, right? So growing up, I was always helping him with his business. So it got me involved in thinking about numbers. It got me thinking about how you buy things, how do you deal with people, how do you run a business, right? Most people don't have that type of education early on, right? They just go to school, they grow up, they have a job, whatever. They don't ever think about, how can I monetize this? What are my costs on this? How much am I making on this? So on and so forth. What are my loss leads? Because he'd always tell me, he says, well, he was like milk, eggs, because it was a grocery store, right? He owned several. Milk, eggs, what else was there?
Bread.
Milk, eggs, bread, right. So it was milk, egg, and breads. He says, you don't make a lot of money on that stuff, right? He said, but you stock it, you're going to sell a lot of it, you're going to make a little bit of money. He says, but it's going to be on all the other stuff, all the canned goods and all that stuff that they're going to come in to get. But you got to have these other things for them to buy, and that's where you're going to make your money. And then you keep beer all the way in the back of the store because you want them to walk through all of the candy and all the potato chips. You want them to walk through all that stuff to get to the beer. And as they walk out,
I'm going to ask you a relevant question. Who are the two best marketers in the world?
Best marketers.
Yeah, who are the two best marketers in the industry-wise in the world? One of them you should know.
Well, yeah, I would definitely say Apple.
So the industries are the supermarkets and credit cards.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant actually individual companies.
No. I meant like industries, right? My bad.
Okay.
So the reason why I bring this up, and I think it's fascinating because you're mentioning it, and I think it really applies to comics, is that a lot of supermarkets where you were saying is that you put beer in the back. I mean, the last time I was in a supermarket, the milk and the bread are right next to each other for the most part, and they're in the back aisles or pretty close to the back of the store. So you got to walk through the whole damn store
Yep.
Unless you're fortunate enough to have a Stu Leonard's, which you got to walk through the whole store anyway. If you're fortunate to have a Stu Leonard's, you know, and I have a Stu Leonard's around, you got to walk through the whole store anyway. So it doesn't matter where the milk is. Nobody gets out of that store without walking through the whole store. But the milk's in the middle, by the way, in case anybody was wondering about that question. But hey, look, I get my strawberry milk from them. It's great, right? You know. Anyway, Clover the cow. I mean, I'm just calling it, right? If you're in Connecticut, I mean, I'm just saying Clover the cow. But my point is that when you run a Kickstarter, you have to know where to place your stuff, and you have to understand the $5 product and the $100 product. And when I run my eBay store, I right now have a $1,500 card in my eBay store, and I have a $6 card in my eBay store. And there's a reason why both those products exist in my store, because the margins on those products are very different. The margins are massive on that $1,500 card, but not everybody can afford one of those. And I would imagine if you're selling a $200 comic or a $70 comic or a big package of comics, the margin is different than if you're selling a $20 book.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, the go ahead.
No, please.
I mean, the stuff that I would say that is most important is the basics of the business, is understanding margin, right? Because I think that's the portion that a lot of people don't understand. I have this constant, and then also where to make money and how to utilize your money, right? And this is an argument I get into with my co-host on my Sunday show, Jay, all the time, right? He's a huge proponent to print offset. I'm like, I don't mind offset so long as it's being done intelligently, right? So what I mean by that is, okay, if you do a Kickstarter and you raise $1,000 and you only have an order for you need 70 books, you're not going to print 1,000 copies of a book or even 500 copies of a book to fulfill that, okay? Because it's going to cost you $1,000 to get that print order offset. Whereas if you do it through POD, which is print on demand, that order might run you $200 or $300, and you walk away with a profit of like $500 or $600 after shipping. Whereas with the other one, you're going to end up in the hole. You're going to end up with more product, and you're going to get it per unit cost is going to be very low, right? But you're still going to be in the hole. You're going to be holding a lot of product, and unless you have a way of getting rid of it very quickly, you're just going to be sitting on it.
I buy cards wholesale. And by the way, anybody can do it, right? Because when you buy 20 or 25 cards, instead of it costing you 10 a card, it costs you 4, right? So, but it's $100 for 25 cards. So it's a no-brainer, right? Yeah. I am not at the stage where I can go to Topps or Panini and say, I want to buy 500 cards. Can we get the cost down to $1 a card, right? But I'm getting there closer and closer, and that's probably 2, 3, 4 years away. When that happens, my order volume is going to go up, but my unit cost is going to go down so much that I could sell those cards for $5 and get rid of my competition and still make the same amount of money, right? So and make even more money by definition. So, but until I'm there and I have the capital to do that, it's just not. It doesn't make sense. But at the same time, I mean, but it's interesting because this whole debate about offset, it's also about where you feel your project is going. I mean, if you think you got the thing right, I mean, and you have a concept and you think you have the demand for it or you want to hustle it, I mean, it's a complicated debate because how much offset, how many do you need to print? Like 3,000, or is it a little bit less now?
No, you can print. There's a printing company in China, Quinn Printing. You get 500 books, 32-page book. I think it's about $480. But shipping will tack on another $400 onto that. So, you're probably going to pay like 90 cents a unit, right? Maybe 80, maybe $1 a unit at that point. If you do 1,000, you're probably going to pay like 75 cents a unit. with shipping, right? Um, whereas with POD, print on demand, is going to run you anywhere from $2.50 to $3 a book, $3.50 a book, depending.
And isn't it also with POD? You could do it locally. I mean, not locally, but you could do it in the US, which is also a different component too, because you don't have to go through customs. You don't have to wait, 2 months. And there is something to be said about that too, because speed can also be a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm not going to mention it. I mean, there's 4 or 5 that people can come to their own conclusions, but people have said, oh, their book is coming out in May, and now they're just getting their books back from their printer, or they're just to the printer and they're doing quality control. And what am I going to get the book in January? I mean, you said the book was supposed to be in May of 2025, not January of 2026. I mean, I don't want to shame anybody. That's why we're not mentioning names, but there's about people who are in that situation, and that's a big issue because I mean, I want to read my fucking books. I just gave you $25. Where the fuck's my book, man? Like, I'm fine with waiting for an indie project, right? Because the project funded in November of 2024, supposed to be in my hands in May, and now we're talking about what, like 16 months? That's kind of a big ask for your client.
Yeah. But it also depends. I don't know what type of book. I don't know if it's a graphic novel, hardcover, whatever.
28 pages.
Is what?
28 pages, 32 pages.
32-page comic book. All right. So, I mean, I don't know how big the campaign was, because if you're gonna sell, if you have like a 500, 600 books, it's worth it for you to send it overseas. I don't know what those, what happened with those individuals.
It was just art delays is what happened most likely. It's art delays and then coloring delays. And if you got 3 or 4 projects going on and you're working on 3 or 4 projects and our team has a delay, things happen, right? But it could also be, I don't know the full story either, right? So I don't want to make any assumptions, but I'm going under the presumption of art delays, or maybe it took a little longer to draw the book, right? Which is fine, right? That's not a big issue. That happens, or an art team changes, whatever it is. But the printing isn't the problem. It just got now to the printer, right? It is what it is. So, but if they were sending it to China, it would take 3 to 4 to 5 months.
2 to 3 months.
I'm being generous.
No, 2 to 3 months. You get them the files. The books are usually printed within 2 weeks, and then for them to ship it, it takes usually about a month and a half, 2 months. That's usually what it is.
Crazy.
But that is what it is. But that should all be factored in. But this is also why I tell people, you should not be launching a campaign unless your project is already ready to be printed. Some people, like, some of them need the money to try to finish the project, but I'm like, look, this is where, you got to suffer a little bit in the beginning. Have that money up front so you can pay for your artists.
I'll ask you a question, and it's going to be an interesting question.
Right.
Who pays on the first date?
I don't know about anybody else. I can only speak for myself, and I know with my wife, I paid.
So the point I'm going here is that
I know where you're going. Yeah.
I think a man should pay, right? And if a man cannot pay, he should figure out a way how to get the money.
Right.
It is where I'm going with this. Whether you borrow the money, you work hard for the money, you figure out a way how to get the money. You get the money because it's just what it is, right? So it's the same thing with a Kickstarter. Is where I'm going with this. Is that you should figure out how to get the money. I'm not saying you should do something illegal, or maybe you should. I don't know. I'm not your advisor, and I'm not suggesting any of that. But great, drive Uber on your weekends. You need to get the money. Work an extra shift at your job. Cut back on some bad things. Sell some collectibles. Whatever you got to do to get it. But it's no different than if you're a guy where you should be paying at least on the first date. Is the analogy I'm using here. And you can call it old-fashioned. You could say that's not a good analogy, but I do think it applies because you gotta, fork over the money, right? And or at least you have to have half your book done at the minimum. I mean, that's how I feel at the very least. I don't know how you feel, because I get that not everybody has $6,000 lying around and can raise $6,000 of their own money. Maybe somebody raises $3,000. I'm fine with that. I get it.
Right.
But at the same time, it makes me nervous when somebody only has $3,000. You got 12 pages of a 24-page book done, and you now raised $4,000.
Right.
Can you really get this thing done? I mean, it's a fair question, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, the way I started with this, this was a long 2007. I don't know, somewhere back there, somewhere like the early aughts, as they say, 2005, 2006. I was running a print brokering business, right? So I was brokering business on the side, and um, I had done it. All right, so I was working with a separate printer. I had gotten some work, shipped it off, was ready to pay my supplier. My supplier, it was a big company. They got into a huge argument with somebody else in their company. And I was ready to pay for this order. It was about $5,000, right? I called them up and I say, hey man, I'm ready to pay, blah, blah, blah. Let me talk to this person. They're like, that person no longer works here. Okay. Well, my name is such and such, and blah, blah, blah. I placed an order, blah, blah, blah. I just want to check on the invoice. All right, let's look at our database. Nah, man, there's nothing in here about you or any order you placed. I was like, really? Yeah. All right. Well, it's nice talking to you. Click. Basically, what he had done, he was pissed at them. He deleted everything about my order. Everything. He basically gave me $5,000. Right? So I had that money, and I was just like, most normal people do like what you mentioned. Throw it in the S&P, right? Throw it, go on vacation.
Oh, no, nobody does that. They go out and they have a good time.
Right, they go on vacation. Well, I have friends who throw it in the S&P, but it depends where you're at, right? I was like, nah, I'm going to do a comic book. So I had $5,000, and I made a comic book, right?
That's do it.
Right, and then when I ran out of that money, I was also at the time playing online poker. When it was legal, well, it was like semi-legal. They hadn't busted them yet, but I could play poker, man, and at least online. I don't like it in person; it's too boring. It takes too long. It's boring as f. But online, I could play 5-6 tables at one time, and I play them fast. And we're playing sit and goes like 6 people, and you just churn and burn every 20 minutes. You're going through a table. I made a decent amount of money doing that. I have pulled some out, and that's how I paid for the next project. And then Kickstarter came around, and I just started using that. So you have to, like you said, you have to work those extra shifts. You got to do those extra things to make that extra money. One of the things I tell everybody is, look, if you can't afford an extra $100 a week, right? $200 a week. You're not ready for this, right? Because I'll contract an artist and I'll be like, listen, give me 2 pages a week and we'll agree on a price. And if I can pay for those 2 pages in 24 weeks, which is 5 months, I'll have a comic book, right? And that's all you have to do. You have to just take it slow in the beginning and just build up. But a lot of people, they don't like to work like this. So a lot of people are just very impatient. They're like, well, I need X amount. Try to get an artist, get them to bang it out in 3 months, in a month or whatever. I'm like, nah, dude, you're not Marvel, you're not DC. You don't have the capitalization for it, So, if you get an artist, most artists, they're happy to get like 2 pages a week because they can do your work and work for 2 or 3 other people as well at the same time.
So it's interesting, right? Because in my business, I didn't build, $34,000 worth of sales, overnight. It took like 12 years, right?
Exactly.
It took a lot of products. I've sold everything. I've sold everything from Legos to Barbies to comics to Hot Wheels cars to Duplo blocks, to Pop Funkos to cards. You name it, I've probably sold it. I've sold, Bitcoin tchotchkes. So it's just things that look like a physical Bitcoin, but are not, but are like reminiscent of it, made good money on that too, right? But I've slowly built it up. So I started and I pumped in 500. And so I was buying Lego minifigures for $2, selling them for 10.
Right.
And then you just keep buying stuff and keep turning it and turning it and turning it. And then you get bigger and better merch. So I started with a $2 product, right? And I think everybody forgets that, you know, now when I'm selling a $1,500 card, it didn't just happen. It's a long process. And also what happens is that you have big exits and you have small exits. And you know, you got to understand that it's the same way I built my portfolio in the stock market, is that, you know, taking 10% of my paycheck while still working, if I was laid off, you know, it was 10% every 2 weeks. Didn't even see it, right? Just sacrifice it, didn't even see it, lived below my means for the most part, and just slowly grinded it out. But I don't think people want, because people want the progress now. And this leads me to my question to you, is that we also see a lot of stuff of that right now on Kickstarter too. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I see a lot of people running ads. I see a lot of other things happening with that. And it's a whole complicated thing. So I see ads on Facebook. I see social media managers. I see people promoting it and getting paid to promote it. I see influencers to a degree. And that's the other thing that I also think is creating, I think, in my opinion, some false, I wouldn't say advertisement, but false identity of what Kickstarter is, what the grind looks like, and how it actually works. Because if you're just starting out, you're not going to be, I mean, maybe you can run ads and maybe you could hire an ad group to do it. But I don't know if your book's like, you know, if you're already tapped out at 6K, do you want to spend another 6K to run Facebook ads? I mean, nothing against Facebook ads, but like, how much money you got, right?
Yep. I mean, listen, I mean, the thing is, you know, you got to spend money to make money, right? As they say. But if you're small, you know, you just got to hustle. You know, you got to be on Twitter, you got to be on Facebook. And then also the other thing is depending on what you're selling, right? Like the Oswald Chronicles, I know that, you know, just through the breakdowns of what we've done over the years, this type of book doesn't do very well on Kickstarter. It does okay, right? Like we know we'll make $3,000. We'll make anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500, right, on a campaign. And that's fine if you can live and work within those means, right? But when you have people come out and they're like, oh no, this book cost me $8,000 to make, you know, and it's like, you know, some rabbit with superpowers, you're like, dude, good luck to you, right? And they make $3,000. They're like, what happened? This is a great book. I'm like, I'm sure it is. But Kickstarter is not necessarily the platform for it, right? I'm not telling you can't make your money back or you can't make that kind of money, but Kickstarter might not be the platform for it. It might be the direct market. It might be you just hustling at shows. It could be any place else or a combination of all of those things. But you got to you know, you have to go out there and make that decision and do that hustle.
Do you also feel, because the way I feel, and I don't know, obviously you buy a lot of comics, and I used to buy a lot of comics on Kickstarter. I would say that 30 to 35% of the time I was disappointed in it, in which the art looked awesome on paper, the concept seemed well, the cover seemed awesome. You open up the book, and I'm like, I get the character's a bitch. You didn't need to tell me that for 2 issues. I got it. I got it. The first 6 panels, guys. We didn't need 2 issues of this. And then in issue 3, we finally get to something. I'm like, okay, cool. But I just gave you $40 for telling me that your character and the main character is a bitch. And at the end of it, I'm like, I get that she had a redemption arc, but we could have done this in like an issue. We could have done it in 6 panels. We could have done it in flashbacks. We could have done it a million ways, and you could have saved me $40. So there's that. And then the other thing is that, have you ever backed a book that was heavily advertised and you're like, this was not as advertised? Because I mean, I've seen it all, right? And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with advertising, but I do think it creates a problem, because I think people say, oh, this book did 100,000, it must be good.
Right. You have a certain expectation at that point. Right.
And money and something funding well does not mean it's good, bad, or indifferent. It just means it made a lot of money. That's all it means.
That's all it means. All right. So Sturgeon's law. 95% of everything, or 90% of everything, I believe it is crap. Okay,
Aaron
Sturgeon's
said
law.
that on
Right.
this show,
Yeah.
and I cut out the clip, and it's a short clip.
Right.
On YouTube, and it's something like probably
Yeah.
1,000 views. It's great.
So, but the thing is this is what I do. I got to be honest with you. I am a notorious trade waiter. I don't really buy comic books, right?
Oh, you're
I
one of
buy
those guys.
graphic novels and I buy hardcovers, right? So I'm a trade waiter. So what I'll do sometimes with a comic, if I like it, I might buy the first issue. If I like that first issue, I'll wait. I'm just gonna sit back and wait for that creator to get me a trade or hardcover, and I'll pick that up. If I don't like it, then I've invested $20, and that's okay. That goes into that pile, and I leave it there. And that's just the way I look at it, like this. That's a minor investment for me to to move on it later, if I do it like that. But it's rare that I'll buy every issue of a comic. You know what I mean? Some of it is is because I'm trying to help somebody out, and partially because I like the book. But but it's rare though.
So I am known for buying certain covers, and
Mhm.
I'm known for buying things, and I'm an art hunter, or I say this looks just awesome.
Mhm.
Like I like certain covers,
Right.
and I bought a comic cover because I like the background and I didn't like the character on it, and I wanted to take the character out and make the background of the book like on like a gigantic print. And I said to
Mhm.
the person, "Could you do that for me?" And they never got back to me, but it was like an awesome city kind of cyberpunk-esque thing. I'm like, man, I just want like an 11 by 17 of this. I don't want your
Mhm.
character on it. Just take out the fucking character, and I just want don't even never opened up the book. I just like the way the book looked.
Mhm.
And then I like certain cosplayers. I like the way they look. I have a
Right.
particular taste in women. Preferably me and Travis Scott might share a few things in common.
Okay.
On our particular taste of women. But
Mhm.
if you have a character who looks like one of the Kardashians that Travis Scott dated,
Mhm.
I might buy that book because well, it fits my taste, and I happen to like muscle mommies too. So if you have a muscle
Mhm.
mommy in your book, I might buy that too. Just saying that I have a particular taste on
Right.
what I buy. But I won't open up your book if you have it. I'll just look at it. I'm like, cool, I like that. That's my taste. So
Mhm.
I'm known for that. But if you don't have that on issue 3, I'm not buying issue 3. You got it on issue 4, I'm all in. So
Mhm.
I'm known for that. Um, but again, I mean, I'm also having a hard time because I look at all these books. There's right now 6, right? I'm not going to name
Mhm.
them because I don't know who you're friends with. I don't want to
Yeah.
create problems for you. If I was flying solo, I would absolutely call out all of it. But they're heavily advertised, and then I look at the campaign. I say this book's average, but how did it do this amount of money?
Right.
And I have questions about this,
Mhm.
and I feel it creates an artificial.
I I have those same questions. I'm trying to crack that egg too. Like, because yeah, we all see those campaigns where they just have a massive amount of backers, and I'm just like, where did they get this mailing list? Right?
I don't
Uh,
even think it's a mailing list. We look at SWATs, right? SWATs
mhm.
cats or whatever. It's not a mailing list. They
Oh, the
just
Smart Cats?
yeah, they run
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
ads on Instagram and
Mhm.
Facebook that their ad budget must be $25 to $30,000. It must be. It must be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, and I'm not saying it's a bad investment. What they've done with that, it's probably a decent investment, but it raises questions. Is that how much capital do you have to do this? How
Mhm.
much backing outside of Kickstarter do you actually have behind you? And this is a really good question because if you have this
Mhm.
much backing outside of Kickstarter, why are you here? It's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
It,
I
it, it,
mean, who do you know which publisher did SWAT Cats?
oh, it's Kevin something did I can't think of his last name, but he's been around for a while and he's been involved in a bunch of publishing. He left his own company and then he got the license to bring it back. But
Right.
like, I mean, I think it did what 200, 300, maybe $400,000. But
Yeah, made a lot of
their
money.
their ad budget is insane. It has to be. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything that will get you or me in trouble. I think it's pretty
No.
well known that they're spending so much money on ads but you have to have that money to front it, unless you're borrowing that money, which creates a whole different economic problem. I mean, if I was to do a financial audit and Caleb hammer that shit, I mean, it would be fascinating because I am so curious because they're spending a lot of money on ads, undeniably. I mean, so like, but I have this question where I'm like, how do you have this money to do it? Because you must have real money behind you.
Yeah.
And this is where it becomes an artificial market.
Mm-hmm. Well, they raised over $700,000.
So I would not be surprised if they spent $70,000 on ads. Would not be surprised.
Yeah, well, probably 10% of their budget. It's not that surprising, I mean, but I mean, I don't. They probably spent because they probably didn't figure it was going to make that much money. They probably maybe figuring 100, 200,000. So I figure maybe they probably initially put in 20, 25,000.
It's still a lot though, because you don't have that money. So you don't get that money until after the fact. So where did you get that money initially, and what institutional backing do you have? Because that's the real question, right? And this is, I mean, I got a million questions about this, and maybe I'm the only one asking it publicly, but and I have no problem dying on the cross on this one. But this is because I don't think it necessarily hurts another comic creator, but it definitely creates issues of expectation.
Yeah. But also, it's like, where did they advertise? Because I know, all right, because I was part of, like I said, the Tenchi Muyu campaign. They raised 150,000, 159,000. Obviously, I did my part in helping promote it. But I know the guys from Armager, those are the guys who actually have the property. Like, they got help from the company they licensed it from. And they got it put up on some high profile, like, online magazines for anime, right? And they got it promoted on there. And I think that's where they got a lot of the attention from. Now, could SWAT Cats have done something like that? I don't know.
I mean, I legitimately for the like last month, every day I saw 5 ads on Facebook from them every day, and I saw 3 on Instagram every day. So every day I saw 8 ads on Facebook, and I'm like, I don't want to see this anymore. I looked at it. I'm like, I just don't have the money, right? Like, I mean, I watch my budget, because when you're out of work, you got to watch your budget. But like the point is that when I'm getting 8 ads for something, it's the same thing with Oshi Push that did 500,000, which was a card game that I backed. They ran a lot of ads. So I'm not saying running ads is not the problem. It's just because also the other thing about that, for those who don't know, is that you need somebody who knows what they're doing. And that person, so you're paying for the ads. And then on top of that, you're paying somebody to run the ads. So, and it's usually a firm. There's 4 or 5 of them. And it's not hard to figure out who's running what and what's doing whom. And these people are experts at it, and they wouldn't be raising it. But my understanding of SWAT Cats or whatever it's called is that they probably just kept throwing fire on it as they were seeing the results, which is good. But at the same time, I mean, how do you have $40,000 just lying around to run ads? Because you got to pay for all that shit.
Yeah.
And that it goes back to being small and growing.
Yeah. In their case, like I said, I don't know the players, right? Because it's different when I see Boom, or I see IDW, or I see Dynamite running these things, because they have money. And you see them put up Transformers, or you see them put up G.I. Joe, or they did Gem and the Holograms recently, like they made a bunch of money, or Power Rangers. When you see that stuff and it's making $500,000, you're like, all right, well, it's Boom, right? You kind of expect that. So
also, though, the other question that comes up too is that how much money is actually being made? And this is also a logical question too, and not that I'm not asking for any of these companies' financials per se, but I think people forget when you do a $500,000 campaign, it's not that you made $500,000 clean. No. I mean, I think people now, granted, if you're printing a lot of copies of Power Ranger, or you're printing, Transformers like the Ultimate Edition, and you're printing 10,000 copies of that book, it's going to be cheaper than if you're printing 1,000 copies of that book, or you're printing 50,000 copies of that book. It's going to be cheaper, right? And they have distribution, but at the same time, when you're doing 500,000, you're running ads, you have a team behind it, you have people assembling the books, you have shipping stuff. It's not that you're making $500,000.
No.
And I think that's the other illusion. At least that's how I see it, right? People don't understand that if I sell you a card for $10 on eBay, I'm not making $10.
Right. That's not how that works. I mean, I would, without knowing numbers, because like I said, I mean, I would have to take a look at the campaigns and see how many backers they have, and then from that you can extrapolate, how many.
If you do 500,000, you're at 450,000 before anything else,
right.
Automatically.
Right. Well, right. So yes, so you got 450K coming because your Kickstarter is going to take his bump, right? So I don't know. Let's say it's 6,000 backers, right? 7,000 backers. Let's say 6,000 backers. I don't know, and then per book, hardcover, I don't know, probably about $7 per book. You probably got to print 10,000, so it's going to run you 70,000.
You're making maybe 200,000, and I'll tell you how you're making 200,000.
That's really probably around. Yeah, that's somewhere in the area. I would definitely say that.
Yeah, because you got to pay people, you got to pay assemblers, you got to pay shipping, you got to pay people packing stuff up.
Packing materials, everything.
Everybody's getting a cut.
Yep.
Once you go over $100,000, people take a cut of it out of it. It's just the way it is, right? It's no different than the diamond taking their cut and the comic shop taking their cut. It's no different, but I digress here. Again, I don't want to get into the financials because I just have an idea because when I run a business, eBay, as far as what they take and the expenditures that go into that are very similar to Kickstarter. As far as, especially when the big eBay guys, when they're doing like $1 million sales stuff, it's very similar to Kickstarter on the percentages, which is crazy. Especially when you're selling $10 items. It's super. eBay takes 13%, in case anybody didn't know that. Which is high. So and it's whatever. I don't want to talk about it. It's eBay. But so when you're selling a $1,500 card at 13%, it's a lot of money. But it's capped actually on eBay at $7,500. eBay cannot take more than $7,500 on any one item. So super cool to know that, right? So if you sell a $4 million item, eBay can only take $7,500 of it. Isn't that interesting, right?
Yeah.
But I digress. But I find this stuff fascinating, and I like other people's perspective on it because I'm looking in the window and people are looking out the window, and nobody wants to talk to me about these issues because I don't have a comic, which is fine.
Well, I find most creators don't. They get very uncomfortable talking about it. I'm fairly open about it. I mean, because I've been doing it a long time, and the thing is, it's about education. So you want to try to like get people to a certain point. Whereas if you want to get into the business, you have to at least educate yourself. I want to at least give people enough knowledge where they're going to at least not break themselves financially.
Oh, see, you're a lot nicer than me. You're a lot nicer than me. I want to educate people for two reasons. First off, I am a big fan of financial literacy. I've always been it. I've been taught very well, and I want people to be financially responsible, financially literate, because it's a good thing for society, right? Yeah. Secondly, I want businesses to be financially literate, and I view everybody in Kickstarter because I want to service your business and get what you sell me. And so if you are financially literate as a company and as a comic creator, it means I'm going to get my product and not get screwed. So it's very selfish as far as why I want people to be educated, because if you manage your money right and you know how to do this stuff in the business right, the likelihood of you getting me books and me continuing to back you and getting this stuff to me quick, right? It benefits me as a consumer.
Yeah.
So and I'm not saying it has to. order a comic on Kickstarter and then it arrives 2 weeks later. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that I feel that a lot of people are not financially literate and not financially stable in Kickstarter. And so we have delays. And then I question, am I ever going to see this thing?
Mm-hmm.
I just gave you $40 and
Right.
I don't like to lose money. And I'm sorry. And there's no consumer protection. So I just want to be protected. That's all. It's very simple. It's a very simple position for me. But that's how I feel. But again, you know, it's twofold. But that's how I feel. But again, I don't really care if people are uncomfortable. You know, life is uncomfortable. Get over it.
There you go. That's it. Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that we tackled here. But I do want to bring it back to your book because you got a bunch of covers. Obviously, you got some digital stuff. You got a cover by C. Michael Lanning. I just want to say, not B. Michael Lanning. I just want to make that crystal clear. He's Michael Lanning. Doing cover A. I just want to make that crystal clear. If we were playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which answer would be C. Michael Lanning? A. C. Michael Lanning. B. Michael Lanning. A. C. A. Michael Lanning. All jokes aside. D. E. Michael Lanning. When you want to pick, but obviously, you know, we could figure it out here. But he did cover A, and he is the artist who's doing the actual art in the book.
He's the interior artist. Yes, he's also my partner in the series.
I'm not gonna say it. I'm
just saying he's the other half, you know, the business partner. So
I was going for a much dirtier joke, but anyway.
Gosh.
I didn't say it.
That's fine.
And then obviously we got to cover B, whose name I can't say. I'm not gonna
Pablo Verdugo Munoz.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna get it. Then we got Len Dye doing a cover as well.
Yeah, it's Lena Dye. And then it's who's sometimes I forget. I do it enough of these.
Or Freitas, right?
Oh yeah, LC Freitas. LC Freitas, he's the D artist. And then Christopher Awan, he did cover E.
And then we got Omega doing another one, right?
Max Omega. He did the F cover. So
yeah, F is for fun. F is for friend. F is for something else. And if you put it next to a U, that's what you tell your enemies when they come after you. And then obviously, I mean, you have a bunch of, you know, other stuff too. You got a lot of nude covers in there.
Yeah,
and those tend to sell. I think you have some medals in there too.
Yep, the medals are in there. I don't think I'm offering. Yeah, it's the regular, the medal. You have the nudes, and that's pretty much it.
And a bunch of bundle stuff, right?
Bunch of what?
Bundles.
Yes, a bunch of bundles. So you get issues 1 through 3. You can get, you know, if you've already purchased the first 2 issues, you can get like the bundles of, you know, Lena Dye's her nude cover and her SFW cover, whatever. And the same thing with all of them. So, you know, you have all these different bundles. And then I also have a bundle in there where you can buy all 3 issues or all the issues, which is the crazy level. So, you know, we'll see. I'm hoping to catch a couple of those people. But yeah, you know, it's a fun book with a lot of fun covers. I think Lena Dye knocked it out of the park. Pablo Verdugo Munoz, he always does a great. I mean, all these guys, they all done great covers. So go check it out because you know.
Yeah. And then obviously, I mean, that's all the stuff, and we tackled a lot of stuff here, and you know, obviously a lot of stuff about comics, a lot of stuff about the book, other things going on with this. You know, and people might think my ideas are crazy. That's perfectly fine. But it doesn't matter how many times I'm right. You're still going to argue with me. Colin Hurd said that, and I might steal from him because I love Colin Hurd. And when he says that every Wednesday, guys, you know, the Hurd. And I was not paid to say that, but I should be. But anyway, all jokes aside, obviously I wanted to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where can people find you, bother you, hit you up, social media, the campaign, other stuff you do, because this isn't just your only project. Yeah.
So you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, theoswaldchronicles.com. What is it? Dreammoverpress.com. You can find me on all those different places. Sunday nights, you can find me on YouTube on my own channel, Indie Comics Explained, where we talk about indie comics, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it, and Kickstarter, obviously. So you go there, check out Magi's Grace. I believe in another week and a half, I'll be launching the next Oswald Chronicle. So that'll be coming out. Yeah. So, the hamster wheel keeps running.
No, I get it. There's always something to sell. There's always something to do. There's always something to write. There's always something to promote.
Exactly.
All that fun stuff. And then obviously I'm going to keep saying it. I've been saying it for a while. You got to support independent projects, people's businesses, people's works, Kickstarters, all that stuff goes a long way. Sharing stuff out. If you want stuff to be made, you got to back it. It is where I'm going with this. If you want people to thrive, you got to support them in a lot of ways. And so obviously social media and everything else that I just said before, way to do it. And then since it's my show, I like to promote my stuff. So obviously I am Pop Anime Comics on the Twitter/DX. I bitch and moan about football a lot on Twitter. So if you want to see what I'm doing on a Monday or a Thursday night, I get very creative on Twitter when on every team. And half the time my team's not playing and I'm still whining and complaining about it. And I did cheer when Brian Gable got fired from the New York Giants. So I was very happy about that for like 3 weeks. For 3 weeks, very happy. But that's Twitter for you, /X. I am Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, very much Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. Do a lot of stuff there. I'm very active on YouTube right now. So a lot of content gets published every day on YouTube. And a lot of stuff is coming in January. So they'll be on the lookout for that. Facebook, if I didn't say already, Pop Anime Comics, or you could come find me and friend me on Facebook. If you could go find my account, I am Pop Anime Comics on the TikTok, which is still active, I think, hopefully. I don't know if it's being shut down anytime soon, but who knows? And then I do run an eBay business, everybody. So this is my eBay business. Look for comps and collectibles. Come shop with us on eBay. And I do carry stuff like this right here by Lena Dye. So she did that book. I have all 15 of them. So if you want that book, it's a foil book. So if you want that book, come buy from me. She did this book too. All 15 of them. Come buy it from me if you want it. I do sell stuff like this in my store. People are saying they can't see it. I don't know why. It's very upsetting when they get an order and then they say they can't see it. I'm like, I'm sorry. Do you want to replace it? They say, no, thank you. So it's very interesting when that happens. I also carry stuff like this in my store as well. WNBA cards limited to 25. And every once in a while, I do get stuff like this in my store, which are limited 101s. And these are the high-end expensive cards that I talk about. So yes, I carry a lot of interesting stuff, and I carry stuff also like $4 cards, $2 cards, $6 cards, and $1,500 cards, and everything in between. And I've been saying it forever that, first off, look at my eBay store if you're looking for comics or collectibles. If you see what you want, feel free to make me an offer or buy it. If you do not see what you want, shoot me a message because I may have it. It just might not be listed. And first off, if it's not listed and you shoot me a message, it might not exist. That happens a lot more than people realize. And I will tell you, so if it does exist and I don't have it, chances are I know somebody who does have it. More than happy to direct you to the right person so you can get what you want. And so that's the whole thing that I do on eBay. So if you're looking for stuff, I got a lot of friends in the industry in both comics and cards, and I have countlessly helped people definitely get what they want. So that's kind of the whole thing with that. So feel free to check out my eBay store, everybody. And again, got a lot of cool stuff out there. And just so everybody is aware, stuff like this does come up in my personal collection. I do talk about it on Big Boy Card Collecting, which is my YouTube show where I talk about awesome cards like my Ron Killens 101, my John Cena stuff, my other John Cena stuff. So if you're looking for cool stuff just to talk about and shoot the shit on, and you like cards and you want to know education, all that fun stuff, I do that on Big Boy Card Collecting. And let's just say in the next 3 weeks, I probably got like 20 items coming in that are going to be sweet to talk about. And I'm super excited. And I'm not going to tell anybody what they are. And everybody will be shocked when they drop and what I open up and what I crack open and all that fun stuff. So that's everything that I do. So again, just Pop Anime Comics, just Google me. You'll find me somehow, somewhere. And if you can't, look for the Smoke Signals on Wednesday night. And sometimes we do meet under the Brooklyn Bridge, but on the left side or the east side, not the west side. So just keep that in mind. If you go to the west side, not the east side, you might run into the Star Wars guys, which is perfectly fine. They're nice people, but they get very confused when we're talking about cards and they're like Star Wars. So anyway, I digress, but I want to give you the final word. So that's what I'm going to do right there. Unless you would like to join me in Brooklyn tomorrow night, which you can all do. East Side, guys. East Side.
East Side. Nice. All right. Listen, all I have to say is this: read more indie comics, especially mine. Thank you everybody. Have a good night.
And that note, everybody, that is a wrap.